Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Ecoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's episode, I have with me Jonathan Bird. Jonathan is the Managing Director of Delivered Social, a social media and digital marketing agency located in Guildford, Surrey, United Kingdom. He is a dedicated marketer, international speaker, and proven business owner who has helped small and medium-sized businesses to scale and grow their sales and revenue using proven digital marketing strategies. When not working on marketing campaigns for client, he enjoys collecting Star Trek memorabilia and spending time with his French bulldog, Dembe, who is also the company mascot. Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me, Matt.
Right on. So how would you describe the kind of person you were in high school?
Oh, well, actually, I think you just did it in the bio. I was the guy who opened the Sci-Fi Club. So I think I was the nerd that was there during lunch trying to get people to come in and watch the latest Star Trek episodes. Now you might not think that would be successful, but it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I think the better question is, how would my teachers describe me? And I think they'd say for science he turned up on time. And for math, he ran away. And for PE, he couldn't run fast enough. And I think that's probably how that would go.
All right on. And that's a great question. How would your teachers describe you? I'm going to steal that for another future episode. Thank you very much. So what made you, inspired you to pursue a career in digital marketing?
So it's interesting. I sold my first company when I was about 26. And I kind of woke up the following morning and essentially had nothing to do. I'd gone from a team of in the hundreds down to me on my sofa with my laptop. And I did this dangerous thing of going to Google, bored, and went, what's going on right now? What's happening? And online dating popped up. So I invested quite a bit of time in the online dating markets, and I worked in that area. And we still have elements of that business now. And I very quickly learned that my first year I didn't earn any money. And then I very quickly had to learn how to make money. And I started using social media as my main traffic sources. And that eventually grew to something in the region of about 4,000 websites, which meant at any point you had 4,000 Twitter accounts, 4,000 Facebook pages.
Wow.
And things like Hootsuite really weren't cutting it at that level, or they were costing too much. So I then started developing my own bits of kit of software to actually do it. And then kind of really got into the nuts and bolts of social media marketing and actually how they work with the networks. And then eventually one day, it kind of dawned on me that what I'm doing is kind of running an agency for one. Why not take what we do and do it for more? And that's really why I got into it and how I did it.
Wow. So that's very interesting. So what was the business that you had that you sold, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. We used to sell everything from printer ink to pens. So it was a traditional e-commerce business. And it was back in the day where, I'm sure there's some e-commerce listeners, but it was back in the day where you really could put something on eBay and you didn't have to marginalize it by the penny every day to be at the top ranking. Whereas now the margins, I'm sure everyone would agree, it's just trimmed and trimmed and trimmed. So I think I probably got out of that right at the right time. There's only, when you think about a highlighter, there's only so much money you can make once you ship it, you post it, and everyone can play the margin, the race to the bottom game.
That's an easy game. It's not a profitable game either.
And I think from e-commerce, if you think about, the Amazon sections, the eBay areas, that's kind of what happens, to maintain those really good listings. And really that was a time, I think, probably before SEO really kicked off really well. Now e-commerce can work using effective SEO, but I think probably back then, if I'm honest, I wouldn't have known or had the skill set. And it was probably easier to use the portals to really grow that business.
Yeah. Do you think there's been such an explosion? They're talking about I think a 32% growth in e-com over the next, I don't know how many years. Sorry, I can't recall the exact figure or statistic. But because of the pandemic, it seems that more and more businesses are quote unquote going to launch their own marketplaces.
It's a really
what are your thoughts on that?
It's a really interesting one. I mean, e-commerce is obviously going to continue to grow and grow and grow. It absolutely has to. We, as an agency, are probably doing more e-commerce sites now than we realise we're probably doing. If we actually, if you worked out how many portfolio websites versus e-com were going out the door, I think our e-commerce would, if we actually looked at it, we'd probably realise there's a massive spike. I think you have to look at, obviously, COVID is a massive driver for this increase, and there's not a marketer out there that wouldn't say that. What I would say is that during COVID, one of the things we did was we developed an app for our local town. And the app had everything from restaurant guidance, anything, okay? And we did it free of charge during a time where the retailers really, really needed it.
Yeah.
Now, that app generated during COVID in Guildford itself, just shy of £500,000 worth of sales for local businesses. No fees were collected, nothing like that. It was just there to use. Now, if I looked over the last 6 months, I don't think it would have generated £5. And I think a lot of the smaller retailers have got lax back into bricks and mortars there. But I firmly believe the bigger retailers are adamantly getting their e-commerce pushing and going forward. And there's multiple factors. If you were to think of a department store, for example, department stores here will have multiple locations. They are going to have to review some of those for rent reasons and everything along those lines. So, where they can't service an area physically by a bricks and mortar site, e-com's the only way to go.
It is. And then you can have a distribution center where you don't even need such big overhead. You can just distribute or ship direct.
And let's face it, one of the other inventions, if you like, over the last, 5-10 years is that actually there are white label distribution centers. One of Amazon's biggest successes is essentially that. Send us the stock, we'll send it out for you. There's a lot of that going on. And it's good. It does work well. I've got to be honest, I like shopping. I like going into stores. I like looking at things. But arguably now I have become the person that looks and then goes online. And it's mainly because the bricks and mortar stores don't carry the items in the quantity, variation, or whatever it is that e-commerce serves.
That is so true. I was just in a clothing store the other day. They didn't have what I wanted, but they had it online.
So actually, we had a conference last week, and two of my team popped out to get some T-shirts that you just could not get some T-shirts in our local town in the sizes for the whole team. It just didn't exist. So it's those areas there where instantaneously people turn to e-com, apart from convenience, speed, cost, all of that. If the offer's not there, they can't buy it. Yeah.
So Jonathan, how do you think, first of all, how has e-com changed from when you sold your company to now?
I think
in your experience,
that's interesting. I would say reviews are more important than ever before. And I think the companies that stood really, really well back then had learned that. So for everyone who's listening, you've probably had an Amazon parcel delivered in the last couple of weeks. Inside it, if you bought from an independent, you'll have this little thing that says, please come and shop at our actual store, and would you leave us some feedback? That feedback now is so vitally important to those businesses because there's more competition. And ultimately, we're driven now to look at feedback more than ever. And feedback, I really do think is one of the key elements of digital marketing, full stop. I think we used to be prepared to wait a little bit longer. So I think e-commerce now is very much a bought it, where the hell is it? And that's not a bad thing. We've got used to a really good level of service, but not every business can fulfill at that level.
Absolutely. And it seems that Amazon has been the one that's driven that. I mean, they even offer same day shipping in the US now. And,
we've got that. Yeah, that is over here as well.
And they've built 2 distribution centers about, I would say about within 10 kilometers, or I don't know how many miles that is, maybe 8 miles. Let's just say 10 miles for Pete's sake. Within 10 miles of where I live, there's 2 distribution centers. They're huge.
And we all know that the next innovation for them will be drone delivery. So, things like that in an e-commerce world, independents can't do that. That's not going to happen. I don't know if you've tried to fly a drone, Matt, but I'd like you to try and fly one over. And I'd like you to put a laptop at the bottom of it and see how much you cry. That is a completely different level of service than an independent or a smaller business will be able to do. Having said that, one of the things I would say with things like Amazon, so we potentially in press and things like that, they get bullied for they're too big for their own good, that type of thing. Yes. Arguably, we also need to look at it from a marketing point of view and sit there and go, well, actually, we do need to step up the plate because it is survival of the strongest. You have to get up there and do what you can for your customers. And sometimes it's not all about speed. Sometimes it's about the user experience on the website. Sometimes it's about the wonderful email they get and the personal touch. It's not always just digital.
Interesting. Because I was going to ask you how, this is just amazing. I was going to ask you, they say if you can't beat them, join them. But but to me, in my opinion, trying to launch a store on a sub store on Amazon is like a race to the bottom, as you talked about. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
No, sorry, Matt. One of the best things I ever did when I had the e-commerce business, and this is years and years and years ago, but it is open to everyone to still do. So I'll challenge any listeners who have got an e-commerce store now to go ahead and do this for me. Certainly come up to the festive period soon. Christmas in the UK, many, many, many years ago, we obviously had our very first Christmas. And sales rocketed. They went very, very well. And the items that were selling, some of them I owned. So I picked some of the items and I wrote letters, physical letters to the people and said, hi, thank you very much for buying this particular pair of headphones. I just want to say, I've actually got a pair of these too. A, thank you for supporting my business. And B, I'd really like to know what you think. So please let me know. And here's £10 to spend in my store. Every single one of those customers, bar two, came back and spent that money and emailed me to say, thank you so much for the personal touch. Now, we're used to email marketing. We're used to that quick thing. But actually, digital marketers now talk about, how we engage and create advocacy. Well, it doesn't always have to happen on digital papers. Actually, sometimes a pen and a piece of paper can help you build that gap really, really quick.
Yeah. Because, it's easy to create an automated email to go out and do that. But people know that. I don't think consumers are as misinformed or ignorant as to know that that's probably an automated email. But taking the fact of putting it when you take the time, because it shows you give a crap.
Yeah.
To be blunt. I mean, I don't mean to be crude, but it shows you care.
And actually, for 100, it doesn't take that long, and you'd be amazed the results it can get. Automated emails do work. We know they do. And as marketers, we have to sit there and say there is a need for them. We need receipts, we need feedback. We do need them at scale.
Yeah.
However, sometimes taking a pause and just looking at it and going, how do I make my customers feel very special will help your digital efforts. Here's why. We all get newsletters. We all delete them. Everyone can agree on that. If you got a newsletter from me, after getting an email from me where I've made you feel good, the chances are you're more than likely to open that email and actually pay attention and give it a read. Now, whereas we all know, digital marketing emails, digital emails at the moment are, the open rates are lower and lower and lower because we're just sending more and more and more. So actually, how do we do that engagement? How do we make it better? And sometimes the answer is augmenting it through physical activities as well.
Can you give me, for instance? Like the physical letter, or how can you augment could you elaborate a little bit, please? Yeah, I'm sorry for being dunce.
No, I think I kind of can give you a really good example. So the physical letter is a great idea because obviously it creates that, you're sending that thing out, you're creating that bond. Then when people see your name digitally, they're more warmed up to it, right? Yeah. We haven't, probably like most agencies, we have an onboarding scheme, if you like, with our clients. And that genuinely involves a letter from me saying, here's my mobile number. If you've got any problems, give me a call. A postcard from our team where we sign it and say, welcome to our service. A brochure that we send out to go, hey, you might be working with us for SEO, but did you know we do this, this, and this? Mm-hmm. Even to the point that we even do that famous classic water bottles. So all of a sudden, the clients that have engaged with us digitally are actually getting all these other bits as well, on top of a podcast, a newsletter. So the nicest way, the best way I've ever seen it work is when they turn up to meetings and they're walking around with our logoed water bottle. And they're taking that elsewhere. Now, obviously, Amazon aren't going to start sending out water bottles with every order, but there is a customer journey where you can look at it and kind of go, well, actually, can we make the journey better by doing slight little things? And, a piece of paper and a letter and a stamp, do you know what? You'd be amazed the result it can do.
Yeah. And the cost isn't that big. You made me think of something. Can't remember his name, but he wrote the book, The One-Page Marketing Plan, Alan Dibb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about that. He claims, he states in the book that he has none of these ideas are new. He just gathered them from all over and stuck them in a book and simplified things, which he has. And it's a great book. And what you were talking about, he talks about a shock and awe package. And where you just put, I've often thought about working with a mortgage broker, and I told him, well, you should put in a first-time homebuyers guide, all these different guides that are printed, ringed booklets, PDFs. They could be in digital format, but also it's way better if they're in printed format. And create a little movie, like a recorded webinar like this, and put it on a thumb drive that's branded, and send them 2 glasses of wine with 2 plastic wine glasses with a bottle of champagne and a microwave popcorn to watch the movie with, or it could be a DVD, even though those are extinct now. But so it triggered that thought, because that's a way you could go the extra mile if you're a service-based business in the financial services industry, or some other ways of creating a shock and awe package to add that extra touch.
And one of the things I really want to emphasize, because I think it's really important to businesses that are inspired by this. So in the real estate market, the estate agent market in the UK, what happens if you look at that model normally is it's a bottle of champagne, a bottle of Prosecco, or what they call a new starter kit. So a couple of tea bags, some biscuits, that kind of thing. The problem with all of those things is we do one thing with them at the end. What is that? We throw them away. Whereas if you get them 2 lovely mugs that aren't branded or anything like that, but let's say something like the Cruise, every time they have that warm moment, they're doing it with something you've given them.
Yeah,
it doesn't always have to be logoed. It doesn't always have to be rammed down your throat. We're the most orange company in the whole of the UK, as far as I'm concerned. Our logo when you see it. But arguably, actually, the feeling we want to convey is, I remember that. That was nice.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't always have to be about getting your logo out there.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. So what would you say to people to do nowadays? Like, for instance, to small brick and mortar businesses, the smaller retailers, to be able to get online and start selling. Like, for instance, do they join Amazon and start an Amazon marketplace store, or do they get on Shopify, or do they launch WooCommerce, or maybe something else?
Yeah, during COVID, we had an awful lot of retail businesses kind of come to us and ask these questions. We were doing daily webinars with retailers. It was relentless. And actually, there's 2 things, in my opinion, that really, really drives it. The first one is, if you haven't sorted out your e-commerce, do it now, because you have no idea whether a pandemic could come back, or whether, anything like that can happen. We've gone through this once and it ripped businesses to shreds. So if you're not ready, be ready. And the worst thing that will happen, not only will you be ready, you'll get extra sales. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there's this great device called a Smirl. I'm going to spell it wrong, but we'll try and get it right. SMIRL. Okay. And what it is it's a live counter for social media. And it's designed to go into a physical environment. So coffee shops do really well with it, because what they do is they say to you, as you're in the queue, there's a little sign in this Smirl that says, for a free cup of coffee, follow us on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And the counter changes at that moment in time. Now, yes, you've just lost the price of a cup of coffee, but what you've actually gained is someone who was excited to engage with your brand, is now part of your marketing ecosystem, and actually you've had to do nothing for it. They're now a follower on that network. So if you're in a bricks and mortar business, consider how you're going to turn those bricks and mortar customers into e-com business going forward. And there's not one business that I've come across that cannot follow that method, full stop. If we're not actively getting people onto our Facebook pages, our Instagram pages, then actually we're doing something wrong. I'm not suggesting waiters or servers or people at the cashier points are going to ask every single time, would you like us on Facebook? That would be annoying. But having something cool that engages the audience, that user participation, like the Smirl, actually will help you to grow those numbers. Meaning that your actual, Facebook efforts, if you're a small business, for example, actually mean something to you. They're great. They cost about, I think they're about $200 to $300. And
per month?
No, it's a one-off cost for them. We've actually got one in the meeting room here. We actually say, while we wait, give us a like. There's a whole load of things you can do.
Oh, absolutely.
But it just helps you get those people to actually engage with the brand a little bit. And if you've got people walking into your shop and they're walking out having done nothing for your next transaction, actually you were doing something wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's SMIIRL.com.
I'm sure it's something like that. Yeah.
I'm on it right now.
Are you on it? So they're great little counters. They work really well.
Yeah, it's bloody brilliant.
This is not a paid for ad.
No. Yeah, that's amazing. And I thought, what about also putting it on your receipts, the back of your receipts with a QR code to like us on Facebook for?
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if again, I think that's a bit like the email automation. People are used to it now.
Okay.
So how many times, and a question to the reader, to the listeners, how many times have you looked at a receipt and followed a company? Probably not that often.
Not very often, no.
Exactly. So as marketers, it's our job to think of things like the Smirl to actually engage with audiences, because receipts end up either being filed for taxes or thrown in the bin again. Yep. So there is a need for it. There's one other thing with QR codes I think are important. The education of QR codes has exploded. People are using them more and more and more than they ever have done because of COVID.
Yeah.
I personally believe there's a little bit of QR fatigue. I think if you consider how often you were doing it during COVID to how often we're doing it now, actually, I think we're not as quick to pull out the phone and look at a QR code.
Yeah.
The good news is people do know how to do it, whereas before people were sitting there looking at them going, what's that funny little square?
Exactly.
So the knowledge has improved, but I do think there's some fatigue. And again, it's just an opportunity to find new ways of doing clever things.
No, absolutely. So would you suggest people, I guess coming back to my question, in regards to getting online, like should they, launch their own Shopify store, their own branded domain name rather than competing with 7, 8, 10 other sellers on Amazon?
I guess it depends what the niche is, and I think that's important. So I think there are some brands that could still do very well on the big player sites, and I think there are some that would struggle. I also think there's independents who, let's say, for example, they make handmade goods. Let's just an example, right? The chances of getting that listed on Amazon and effectively selling through Amazon is going to be quite tough. Whereas actually selling to your own customer demographic who already believe in you via your own platform might be better sales. I do think if you're talking about those types of bricks and mortar businesses going to e-com, they need to do it sooner rather than later. And if they haven't done it, learn the lesson, do it. Okay. Find the money, get on with it.
Absolutely.
You're just losing sales. It's that simple. And then the second thing is really, read, consult, educate, whatever the vibe is, but go and find the people that can help you identify whether it's a good idea to put it on Amazon, whether it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Wherever you can get a sales opportunity, get a sales opportunity, but don't work silly for something that's never going to give you a result.
Yeah. You mentioned the challenges of COVID and how that changed things. It accelerated the amount of people that are buying online, they say, by about 2 years, if not more. There were agencies that blew up that were making a killing. There are some businesses that went under, and even more dire results than that I don't want to be too negative, but some people, did some very unfortunate things and are no longer with us, put it that way. How did you manage those challenges during COVID as an agency?
So we were having a really good year before. And we were starting our aggressive plans for our kind of growth as an agency.
Yeah.
And commercially, as with every other business, everything kind of went wrong. There were clients that were going under. I do have to say for the record, not one client, and I think this is probably true of most agencies when you picked up the phone, they didn't want to make that phone call. They were trying to save their businesses. So this was something that was really out of everyone's control. We, about 6 months before COVID, had worked on something called Delivered Social Green. Now, for anyone who's interested, I will ask you to have a look at deliveredsocial.com. In the top right-hand corner, there is a little green heart. Feel free to press it anytime you're listening. Now, we'd hired our very first, what we call our first Delivered Social Green director. And it was an ambition of ours to open a part of our agency that worked with any charity, any size, free of charge. Simple. That was it.
Wow. Yeah.
And we decided during its first year that we were going to work with 20 charities and get our method right. So we then obviously had COVID hit. And COVID hit, and we then spent the next 6 weeks, probably like most agencies, on the phone from 6 a.m. in the morning to about 11 p.m. at night, speaking to our teams, our internal management, our customers. And everyone was kind of saying the same thing every day, which was, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? When's the announcements coming out? What's happening with this? What's happening? And we all fell into this trap of waiting for other people to answer the question. And then some bright spark, and I honestly, none of us can remember who it was on those calls, but when we do remember, they're going to get broken legs. They said the following words. They said, let's just pull green forward. So we did. And literally overnight, we had about 320 charities just say, yes, help us. Now, that was great. So we went through some amazing expanse in our charitable giving, which is something we're very, very keen on here. It nigh on destroyed us. And to this day, for all the charities we supported, we're very honest, they do know this. It was tough getting them through it. But for charities who had no online fundraising platforms or no websites, we were knocking those out for them at no cost during a time where we needed to. What then happened naturally was we obviously got really good PR for it. So commercially, would you want to work with an agency who didn't give a crap, or would you want to work with an agency who did all this? And then all of a sudden,
absolutely.
Exactly. So in doing good, we did good. We got looked after. Green is a subject very close to all our hearts. Probably one of the things I have to say, because for those of you who are listening, it's a fantastic idea if you've got your charity, if you've got your CSR programs and you look at them. Honestly, look at Green. Very happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk to me about it, because I firmly believe in it. But I'm
also brilliant.
I'm going to attach a warning. Mm-hmm. During COVID, it was hard work for everyone. What we did was we went tenfold, and that took a toll on our team and the amount of work we tried to deliver. So whereas we're really proud to have pioneered that level of what we did, and we genuinely are, there are definitely learnings. And had we maybe not have had COVID and stuck to our original plan of taking that 20 in the first year, that might have been better for us. But as with all businesses, COVID threw up some red herrings, and we had to go for it. And we did.
Did you work with all 300? So instead of 20 in the first year, you did 300.
Yep.
All free of charge.
Yep.
Wow.
So now we have changed that offering because we've had to. So what most agencies do is they offer a charitable, they have a charity they support. We wanted to be ambitious with this, and we did do that. We kept that up for about 2.5 years. We've now changed the offering to donating of a £3,000 or about $3,500 of services, and then everything's 50% off. Because unfortunately, the reality is, as brilliant as it was, and we're very, very proud of it, the reality of it was that it wasn't necessarily, it was definitely the smartest business move, but longevity to it, probably not. And
I understand.
Our impact was so huge. And again, we're very proud. We still wanted to maintain that impact. And you can't go from we've done this to, we'll look after 3 charities.
No.
We have it's part of our DNA here, and we firmly do believe in it. In fact, one of the things we ask of our clients is we will not work with a client unless they have an active CSR program. It's that simple. So we actively want to promote good work. I can't say we're as near to being a B Corp as maybe we'd like to be, but the intention is there for us to do well with our work.
No, that's bloody brilliant. Robert Kiyosaki in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, wrote that anytime he was stuck in a business situation or needed to make money, he just gave money away. And every time he did it, it opened up a business opportunity every single time.
Yeah.
He'd just make a donation somewhere. And
I mean, if you think about it logically, let's just pretend all 300 of those products were websites. Let's just pretend for a second. An agency within 6 months automatically then has 300 other sites with the wonderful words "website gifted by Delivered Social." Now, that isn't press you can buy. You can't buy that. So, the thank you cards that arrive, the notes of the feedback, you cannot buy that. And it's really important to remember that it's still doing really good. So you get a really good buzz from it. But like with all things at that volume, it does take a toll. So it's great. We're really, really proud that we were that ambitious. We're proud that we delivered. There's a health warning, ladies and gents. It's great if you can go for it. But do you know what? Even if you did 10, that would be 10 charities that had support they didn't have before. Strongly consider it.
Yeah. I mean, you could do one a month. It wouldn't be that hard for someone to do one a month.
Well, you say that.
Yeah, I know. I'm probably sound like
no. You say that. My head of web is over there at the moment, and one of the things we've looked at is whether we could do one a month, and we've both sat in meetings where we've gone, but how can we turn them away? So when you go to scale, and then you have a charity come and say, actually, your help could help us save X. You don't want to say no, and quite rightly, if you can, we should help. So there is a balance. We haven't found it yet, but I'm glad that our balance came from an ambitious story, at least.
Yeah, and it's so good to give back. Like you're not just this dirty capitalist that everybody is complaining about. That's just in it for money and to hell with everybody else. I don't think that's the point of being in business. I think the point of being in business is to support yourself, solve a problem in the market, provide value, hire people, mentor them, and in some ways be able to give back. That's my whole philosophy.
You asked what's changed between like business 1 and business 3. That's probably the biggest thing, right? Is this inception of, you want to look after yourself, you need to look after your family, your friends. Yeah, of course you do. But you can also do good. You can have an impact. You've mentioned a couple of authors. I'm going to have to drop one of my favorite ones in.
Sure, please do.
An author called Daniel Priestley. Now, he's wrote a series of books, but essentially his company is called Dent. And his argument is, look, if you're going to do anything, make a dent. And we can all go to sleep at night here at Delivered Social knowing that our dent was those 300 plus charities. And that is a really good thing to remember. On those really bad days, we do have to sit there and kind of go, well, actually, do you know what? We stepped up. We did do this. Now, you also mentioned kind of the agencies that fell under or went down. Unfortunately, I'm not sure any of them, I think if they could have been saved, they would have been saved. And this is the horrible thing. Something like COVID does change the market. It does,
The market is survival of the fittest. I think you would agree. Like those businesses that weren't doing well before COVID, going to COVID, that's just the market. That's the market. Like it just obliterated some people. It's horrible, but it's just the way it is.
And that's the truth. And I think the businesses that are constantly striving right now, they should be really, really proud of the resilience they built up during those couple of years of such turmoil. And you know what? They really should take a night off and just go, actually, do you know what? We've just got through the worst period of business history other than a war in a very long time. And whereas I'm sure we're not all through it quite yet. I know we're certainly not. At least we're all there still moving forward and pulling in the right direction.
Yeah. Of the 4 books that he's written, which one would you recommend to read first?
Oh, right. So I would say Oversubscribed is great. Read it.
Okay.
Then read Key Person of Influence. Key Person of Influence is basically going to tell you to write a book. And then the one that will make you want to hunt him down and shoot him is 24 Assets. And he will know that I will say that because we've spoken about it several times. I'll tell you a little story about 24 Assets. And I think anyone who hasn't taken it, go off and have a go at it. 24 Assets is a scorecard. And it basically rates your business. And it talks about everything from what assets you've got, digital, physical, everything.
Yeah.
And I've read the first few books and, I've engaged with Daniel quite a lot online and, all of those things.
I'm gonna go follow
24 Assets, I'm sat there on holiday, as I do because I read business books on holiday because I'm that idiot, with my laptop next to me. But we'll come to that to another point. And I tweeted him, and I took a picture of this book with my foot in the background with the swimming pool in the foreground, and I tweeted him and I said, right, bring it Priestley. And I put my phone down, I opened the book, and the book at the very beginning says, before you read this book, go and take this quiz. And you go to the quiz and you enter your name and you enter your email address and you continue on this quiz. Yeah. And the first question is, do you do this? And I'm there as a business owner, proud. I know what I'm doing. I'm like, yes, of course I do. And then question 2, do you do this? I'm like, yeah, of course I do. Tick. By the time I got to question 3, I was starting to go, I do that sometimes. By the time I was question 10, I wanted to find him and hurt him physically. Oh, wow. Because I realized at that point, I really wasn't as good as what I thought I was. Oh, wow. And it gives you this brilliant report at the end that kind of says, hey, if you want to do this, just go and fix this. Really simple logic that works really well. And it gave me a very simple blueprint to engage in a different mode of thinking. So read the books in order, absolutely. But 24 Assets is the one that I challenge anyone to have a go at. So it's great.
To reiterate, you said read, oversubscribe first?
Yep.
And then Key Person of Influence?
I would say so.
And then 24 Assets?
Yeah.
And then Entrepreneur Revolution?
Well, Entrepreneur Revolution isn't my favorite. Sorry, Daniel. But you can read it. There's 2 other books. So he's got a scorecard one coming out, which I definitely think everyone should be reading, because I think if you're in marketing, that's a big thing. There's another book he's done as well, which is actually a children's book about, well, it's not actually a children's book, but it's designed for children to help children be entrepreneurial. So it's to help parents actually guide their children in an entrepreneurial style. And I think that's got to be good fun to read. I haven't done that one yet because I'm scared I'll get it wrong again and I'll have to hunt him down again.
Yeah. So I asked you who you were in high school, but have you always had an entrepreneurial drive in you? So when you were, did you have the lemonade stand, the newspaper out, the
question needs to be phrased into, have you always been bossy and wants to be your own boss? And the answer was yes. I think truthfully, yes. I think my family drove me to want to do good things. My education, I was very lucky that I was very worldly educated. That really did help me. But I joke at the very beginning, and unfortunately, I can already in the back of my head see eyes roll as I say this. I appreciate this might be filmed and actually put online. So will anyone be able to see this camera when we do this? Or is it all going to be audio? Yeah. Brilliant.
No, it's video audio on YouTube.
Here we go, guys. So the other thing that inspired me was that wonderful thing there, the USS Enterprise. And for 45 minutes, this crew could encounter anything and through diversity, fix it. And I think that was probably one of the things that really sparked some entrepreneurial kind of thought, was this challenge of, here's this alien, how do we get past it this week? Versus how do I communicate to this thing? I don't know how to do this. So I really do think a lot of it was down to the selective programming my family showed me that has now become maybe a bit of a cult. But don't get me wrong, I definitely watch silly things as well. But I do think it helped. So yeah, I'd say I probably have been.
Yeah. What do you think are the most successful skill? What are the most what are the most crucial skills for someone to have to be an entrepreneur, to develop?
So that's a really poignant question to ask right now. And almost a bit of a tearjerker. I'll tell you why. I think any entrepreneur would sit there and say, consistent learning, listening, all of the usuals. Okay. And the usuals are the usuals because they're the right answer. I would say for myself, I have found COVID to be war. So to sit in this chair and run the organization through it has been very, very heavy. And I think the skill that I've learned or am learning is that it's okay to go to battle stations, and we might still be at battle stations, but you also have to get back to the normal somehow, sometime. Yeah. And we're going through a change right now where not everyone, including myself, can step down yet, because we've been so needing to chase every single sale, make sure so I think there's that that's another skill that I'm not sure I can put into words. Maybe it's personal growth, but if you look at the analogy of, you know, stepping into that war zone to survive through it, actually maybe there's that post-traumatic argument after it as well. And I think there's a lot more needed in that mental health space for entrepreneurs. And I think that's a key skill we're all going to need to A, adapt to, and B, recognize that, you know, we do not have those answers yet. And we might not for a long time. So, you know, obviously all the usual answers are correct. Absolutely. But for anyone who's listening, I you know, if that resonates, I would honestly say, pick up the phone, dial into Skype, say hello to me, say hello to someone, because in business, we have gone through it and we do need to recognize that. And it's a key thing that we're learning at the moment.
Absolutely. You know, there are 50 other questions I would like to ask you, but I realize we've come to the top of the hour, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I would love to have you back on the show again if you would come on.
Gladly,
yeah, because there's so many other things we could talk about. That being said, how can our listeners get in touch with you online if they choose to do so?
For anyone who'd like to, obviously you can visit deliveredsocial.com, and my direct email address is jonathan@deliveredsocial.com. If you want to email me at any point or about any of the things we've talked about, please do. And again, you know, just go to the contact form on the website. It will get forwarded to me. Very happy to hear from anyone who'd like to raise a point or discuss any of these things, especially CSR. So if you're looking at engaging that into your business and want some hints or tips, we're more than happy to pick up the phone.
For those who may not know what the acronym CSR means, could you elaborate?
Yeah, so corporate social responsibility, but essentially just doing good.
Yeah, right on. And you're also on LinkedIn at Jonathan Bird UK, right?
I am indeed.
Right on. So they can connect with you there as well?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes. Hey, once again, absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Matt, you're very welcome. To everyone, live long and prosper if we're doing a Star Trek one.
Yeah.
See you soon. Be good.